Okay, hello everyone. First of all, can you hear me properly and can you see us before we start? Just to check from a technical point that everything is okay. Yes. Okay, thanks. Amazing. Well, I'm really happy to be back here for this new live discussion with you. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Bastien and I'm working at Join a School in France, recruiting international students. And today we're going to take a deep look at the GMAT exam and how to use your official GMAT score report to apply to a master's in management with us, with Join a School in France. So taking your test is a crucial step when you apply for a master's program, and getting ready for test day can seem overwhelming. But do not worry, here is James to help and to explain everything you need to know. Hello, James.
Hi there, Bastien, and thank you for the invitation to join the Join a School in France team today.
Thanks to be here with us. So here's James, and here's what we're going to go through pretty much today. So first, James is going to give us an overview of the GMAT exam, on what's being tested, tips and tricks, everything you need to know about the GMAT exam. At the end of his presentation, we will run a Q&A session. So please feel free to ask any question in the chat box while we're speaking, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. And secondly, I will talk about the admission process with Join a School in France, how to apply, when, which materials, etc. And I'll take the question at the end of my presentation as well. Okay, so we're all good to start. So I pass the floor to James so that you learn more about the GMAT exam.
Okay, so thank you again, Bastien, for the invitation, and thanks everyone for joining the GMAT session this afternoon. I'm speaking to you from the UK. I'm in my flat, so I apologise in advance if there's any external noise. I know it's almost time for the kids to come out of school nearby, so that might be something you hear in the background. So my apologies in advance if you do hear any of that. So as Bastien has alluded to, what we're going to be doing today is introducing you to the GMAT exam, which is an important part of the process of applying for a Master's in Management related degree. And really what we're looking to do today is to do three things for you. Firstly is to explain a little bit about how the examination is used as part of any admissions process. Secondly, we're going to be looking at what is in the GMAT exam, so what you might expect to encounter when you come to take the test. And then finally, we'll start to think about how you can think about the practical elements of taking the exam, as well as that all-important process of preparing for the GMAT exam. So as Bastien has said, any questions that you have, feel free to type them into the chat box, and we'll come to those at the end of the presentation. So yeah, by way of introduction, I should say my name is James. I work for the Graduate Management Admission Council, and we're the makers and publishers of the official GMAT exam. So that's why we've been invited here today. Okay, so firstly, why the GMAT exam? It's probably something that you've read about on the web pages of the business schools that you're intending to apply for, or maybe on the Join a School in France pages as well. But essentially what the GMAT is an assessment of your critical reasoning and critical thinking skills. So as we'll see later, we'll show you how these critical thinking skills are crucial to doing the Masters in Management, but also hopefully reassuring you that these are skills that you're already utilising in the world of work or as part of your bachelor's related degree. People do tend to get a bit stressed out by the GMAT, partly because they are fearful of the concepts, and I'll help to reassure you in a bit as to why that should not be the case. But also, of course, because it is the one piece of the application process that you have full control over. So clearly you can't rapidly change your undergraduate degree scores, and you can't go back and amend any work history or internships and that sort of thing. But with good preparation, you can make the best attempt on the GMAT exam to give you the best chance of success in that admissions process. So the exam was first founded back in the 1960s because business schools wanted a way to assess the suitability of candidates for top-level MBA and Masters in Management programs beyond simply using the undergraduate GPA. So as we'll see later, the GMAT is a standardized exam. There's the same process if you take it in France or in India, Japan, China, wherever you may be, which can then be used by the business schools to compare candidates on a like-for-like basis in a way that's a little bit more difficult when using undergraduate GPA, which can vary country by country. So today the exam is taken over 200,000 times per year, and is accepted by a range of different business management programs all around the world. But as I mentioned before, we're here purely to assess your critical reasoning and your critical thinking skills. There are going to be other things that will also make you a strong applicant for the programs that you're applying to, including your leadership potential, your motivation, your professional skills and your job background, your general academic aptitude, and of course the things in your personality and your personal life that would also make you a great person to have in any classroom. So the focus here is purely on those critical reasoning skills. And it's also crucial to note that this is not a replacement for your IELTS or TOEFL exam, because we're also not assessing your fluency in English. But of course, you want to know what the value of the GMAT exam is, both for yourself and for the business schools. As I mentioned, it allows the business schools to compare fairly across that applicant profile. But also crucially, GMAT has loads of data from across the years that shows strong correlation between how people perform on the GMAT and how they do on business masters courses. So that's why the business schools utilize this exam to have further confidence that you're the right person for the elite sorts of masters in management that Journal School in France are working with. But of course, for you, the candidate, you want to know what's in it for you. Why do you have to take this exam? And really, there are kind of four main things that we'd like to draw your attention to. Firstly, it offers you the ability to stand out. So clearly, the higher your GMAT score, the more desirable your profile might start to become, with all the other things being strong as well. Secondly, it can help you to compensate. So perhaps you don't feel that your undergraduate performance was as strong as it could be, or maybe you're coming in from a background that doesn't allow you to evidence clear business and management discipline skills, whereas the GMAT can allow you to make up for that, and again, to convince that admissions officer that you have the suitability for that elite Masters in Management course. Thirdly, it opens the doors to the top schools. So as you can probably identify, it tends to be the leading ranked schools and the more selective schools who require the GMAT exam, with some even utilizing it for their scholarship processes. And then finally, and this is maybe more for MBA candidates rather than Masters in Management, if you've been away from the world of study for a period of time, going through that GMAT process allows you to get back into the mindset of being a student again and get ready to go back to business school. So those are the four main things for candidates to think about when thinking about the value of the GMAT exam. Okay, so now I'm going to break down the GMAT exam, firstly by showing you the structure of the examination, and then digging a little bit deeper into what you might expect to encounter in each of the four sections on the GMAT. So here's that structure laid out for you here. So the four sections of the GMAT exam. Firstly, we have the analytical writing section. This is one question, which lasts for 30 minutes and has its own individual score out of 6. Secondly, we have the integrated reasoning section, which again takes 30 minutes and has its own individual score out of 8 over 12 questions. There's then a short break before we move on to the two maybe more meaty sections of the GMAT exam, the quantitative reasoning and the verbal reasoning. Here you have 31 questions over 62 minutes and 36 questions over 65 minutes respectively. And it's these two sections that go together to give you your total score on the GMAT between 200 and 800. So when you visit the business school websites, you might see a minimum score requirement or a class average score, and it's normally that total score that they're referring to. So to repeat again, the integrated reasoning and the analytical writing have their own separate score sections. Today, you can choose the order in which you take the GMAT exam. So historically, you used to have to follow that historic order. So starting out with the AWA, then the IR, before moving on to the quant and the verbal. However, now if you're taking the examination in a test center, you can choose the order in which you wish to take those sections. So a key tip for your preparation process is to think about how you might feel comfortable in that scenario. So some people like to start out with the material that they feel at ease with, so that they can get into the examination mode in a more relaxed way. Other people prefer to tackle the stuff that they think is harder first of all, because that means that they can tackle it well while their mind is still at its freshest. So either way, your score will not be affected by this, but it's just a way of you keeping control over your examination experience. I should say today that I'm talking about the in-person GMAT primarily, because most of our exam centres are now starting to reopen. But you cannot choose the order on the online GMAT. So we can talk a bit more about the differences between the online GMAT and the in-person later, should you so wish. But today the focus will be on the in-person GMAT. Okay, so moving on to dig a bit deeper as to what you might expect to encounter in each of those four sections and why they're included. So the analytical writing section, as I mentioned before, has one individual component with its individual score out of 6. Here, you're given a statement to read and to revise, and then you're asked to write an argument in response to that particular statement. And one of the crucial things here is that this may not be necessarily related to business, but we're looking to see that you can understand the underlying meaning behind a piece of written text, and to show that you can take an informed position in response to the assumptions being made in that article. So it could be on tourism or student housing, anything. All we need to do is to show that you can understand what's being written to you and take that informed stance when writing a response to that. And really, in a way, that's no different to what you're doing as part of your bachelor's at the moment when you're doing essays and dissertations. You're evidencing that skill. So hopefully this should not prove to be too much of a challenge for you all. Moving on, we have the integrated reasoning section. This section came onto the exam in 2012. And really what we're looking to see that you can do here is to synthesize different types of information. So there are 4 different question types here. We have the multi-source reasoning, where you're given a range of different information types, and you have to choose which is the best source to get to the particular answer or conclusion. There's the analysis of tables and the analysis of graphs. And then finally, there's 2-part analysis, where you're given 2 different data sets to manipulate to come to the most valid answer. So again, here we're looking to show that you can integrate different pieces of information to see how the pieces of information intersect and interrelate, and how you can draw the most valid conclusions. And again, I like to think a bit about this a bit like doing a consulting project at university, or even a research report. You're drawing from the sources that support your argument or to help you to answer the question that's being posed to you. So again, a key skill for the mastery management moving forward. Next, the 2, say, bigger sections of the GMAT exam. These 2 sections are both multiple choice. In quantitative reasoning, we have 2 different question types. There's problem solving, which is basic high school mathematics in algebra, geometry, and so forth. So again, nothing you won't have encountered before, but maybe during preparation, it's just a case of refreshing your knowledge bank and your skill set to get up to speed on those concepts. And then secondly, there's data sufficiency, where you're given 2 different types of data, and you have to decide whether or not you have enough information to solve a particular problem. We're not asking for the problem to be solved, just for you to be able to interrogate that data to understand whether or not there's enough information there. And for that question type, the 5 different answer options are always the same. So again, through that preparation process, it's worth thinking about getting these into your memory so you can quickly identify what that question is looking for you to do. So clearly the quantitative reasoning is there to show that you can evaluate a range of data and also come to numerical conclusions. So obviously this is a key concept that's going to be required for the more mathematical and quantitative courses on that mastery management, the accounting, the finance, the economics, and so forth. And then finally, the verbal reasoning has 3 different question types. And we have the reading comprehension. So here you're given a passage of text. Again, it could be on any topic. You have to understand the argument that's being made by that author. So it's all about being able to take, as I say, a text and get that underlying meaning. So again, this is the same thing that you're doing at university now. If you're reading a journal article or a piece of text from your lecturer, you're just looking to interrogate the information that's being given to you. Secondly, we have critical reasoning. And here you're looking to understand or to demonstrate that you can identify the underlying flaws in the logic of any given argument. So again, a similar concept applies. If you're given a research report at uni or a passage of text to read, you don't just blindly consume it. You look to understand the underlying meaning and to identify any flaws. And again, that's that skill that we're looking to show that you can manage here. And then finally, we have sentence correction, where you're given some statements that you have to amend to give them the optimum clarity. Okay, so that's the 4 sections of the GMAT with some examples of the types of questions that you might expect to encounter. And I should say that all of these question types are available for you to browse on our website, gmat.com. And I'll show you later where to get some further examples of those question types. A further difference, just a flag between the online and the in-person GMAT, is that there's no AWA on the GMAT online. Okay, so again, just to compare some of the different versions of the test, since we have the table here. So basically, the GMAT Online came on board, obviously, at the start of the coronavirus pandemic as a way for people to still be able to access the GMAT. But because it works under a different mechanism, there are certain differences in terms of how that test is delivered. So the first is the cost, where we have a flat fee of $250 for the GMAT Online, whereas we have variable pricing depending on where you are in the world for the in-person GMAT. Obviously, you take the online GMAT in your home or wherever you have a suitable workspace. Whereas the in-person, you have to go to the testing center. Another key benefit of the online GMAT, though, is the fact that you can take it all week around. So we offer appointments every 15 minutes, whereas the appointment availability for the in-person does vary depending on the test centre. So some centres may offer the exam maybe 2 or 3 days a week, others every day, it just depends. And of course, at the moment, they are having to adhere to any local restrictions in terms of social distancing and the ability to move around. As I mentioned earlier, the section order can be chosen in the test centre, but cannot be chosen in the GMAT online. For the GMAT online, you have to follow the quant verbal IR structure. Also in the test centre, you'll be given a wipeable sheet in order to make notes. Whereas in the test centre, you have to, for the online, you have to provide your own whiteboard to the specific specifications outlined on MBA.com, or to use the online screen to be able to make your calculations. So again, when you go through your preparation process, think about how you're going to be feeling comfortable with that note-taking, and get used to using the online tracker if you're going to be using the online whiteboard. Another key difference is that for the official scoring, in the test centre, you'll get your score immediately at the end of the exam. So at the end of the examination, your total score will appear on the screen, and you'll have 2 minutes to decide whether you want to accept or reject it. And then within 3 weeks, but normally a lot quicker, the official scorecard will be generated and made available to the business schools that you want to apply for. Whereas with the online GMAT, you have to wait for 7 days to preview your score, and then you can send your scores to the schools of your choice. In both cases, the exam is valid for 5 years, however, and you have to, you can only take the examination 5 times in 1 calendar year. But hopefully with good preparation, you should be nailing the GMAT on the first or second attempt anyway. Okay, so now moving on to some of the kind of more practical elements of the GMAT exam and showing how the GMAT exam can work for you, as we call it. So all of your registration is done via gmat.com or mba.com, so they are the same website. I know that you're applying for Masters in Management courses, but mba.com is still the same site. When you go there, you can look to see where your nearest GMAT test centre is, and then you can click on the test centre to find the available dates. Alternatively, you can click on the online GMAT portal and register for the online GMAT in that way. We've talked about that on the previous slide, so we'll skip on. If you are doing the GMAT exam in person, you have to check in a bit like going to an airport, and it's the same for the online GMAT as well to some extent. So when you get to the test centre, you'll have to show your government ID, so your passport, ideally. You'll have your photo taken, your palm vein read, and you'll have to leave all of your items in the locker outside the testing centre. For the online GMAT, you log on in advance. You meet with the proctor, so the person who's invigilating or checking the examination process. They again will validate your ID, ensure that the workspace around you is compliant with the GMAT rules and regulations, and then they'll start the exam at the designated time. But again, it's important, again, during the preparation process, that you familiarise yourself with the regulations and how the exam will work to make sure that you're meeting these particular requirements, particularly for the online exam, which clearly has a lot more onus on the candidate to be ready rather than simply turning up to the testing centre. Okay. So we don't have many questions coming through yet, so please do type them in the chat box should you have them. I realise we're covering quite a lot of material quite quickly today. There's always a lot to fill in just a 25-minute or so session, so please do type your questions in should you have them. So normally when I meet with candidates, it would be at an in-person fair or an event, or maybe on a university campus. And probably the most common question is about how to prepare for the GMAT exam. So clearly preparation is important, and I realise that sounds very, very obvious, but I'll show you in a moment 1 or 2 reasons why that's particularly true in this case. So I'm often asked, how much time should I spend preparing for the GMAT exam? And the answer is always, it depends. So a lot will depend on your familiarity with the concepts. A lot will depend on how much time you literally have to spend preparing. And of course, it will depend on the score level that you hope to obtain. And that's because in order to tackle the higher grades on the GMAT exam, you need to be exposing yourself to a range of different question difficulties. So for the in-person test, the computer will give you harder questions as the exam goes on, the more questions you answer correctly. So the trouble is, if you only prepare a narrow band of question difficulties, you'll hit your level and you'll hit your ceiling too soon. So here on this slide, you can see the number of hours of preparation that people told us they put in to obtain certain scores. So already your critical reasoning skills should be clicking in. This is self-reported data, and people tend to underreport. So I would say that these are very conservative estimates. However, the takeaway here is that the more hours of preparation you put in, the higher your score is likely to become. And as I say, I know that sounds highly obvious, but it allows you to do two things. One, tackle that broader range of questions. But then secondly, also think about your examination strategy. Okay, so as you go through the examination, you've got to become familiar with the question types to be able to make informed choices as to when you maybe want to make an educated guess and to move on, or where you maybe wish to spend some more time on a question because you know that you can get to a certain answer correctly. And the reason why this is important is that the quantitative and the verbal sections have penalties applied to them should you fail to complete those sections. So it's important to think about how you're going to work through that material in an effective and constructive manner. Okay, pressing the wrong buttons, that's why it's not moving on. Okay, so of course, GMAT has a range of different resources and get you started on this preparation journey. I'm going to move forward again actually for one moment. And if you do nothing else but this after the presentation today, please do access the GMAT official prep software online. Firstly, it's free of charge, so there's a benefit there, but it's the only place to go for real former GMAT questions. So we offer you 90 real former GMAT questions to sample, and then 2 practice exams that will work in the same way as the real GMAT exam will. Other resources, of course, are available in the market, so use whatever makes sense for you, but I definitely recommend that you start out by sampling some real official GMAT questions to begin with. Then we have some further materials that can help you deepen your understanding of that GMAT exam. In particular, in the center, we have the GMAT official guide. So this is a book that offers examples of all of the 4 types of questions on the GMAT exam, as well as answer explanations. And there's the quantitative and the verbal books that allow you to dive deeper into those 2 sections, again, giving you more examples of questions that might appear in those sections. And then finally, you can purchase further examination packs if you wish to practice your strategy. And I'll be sending Join a School in France a discount code for you to use in the online store, should you wish to do so. Okay. The 2 key things on the official preparation are to think about the question types and the breadth of questions you're tackling, and secondly, your examination strategy. Okay, so really that was the kind of overview of the GMAT exam. So feel free to continue to type in some questions should you have them. Again, I recommend that you start out by visiting gmat.com. It's also a great place to go for application tips and to find out more about applying to business school. But crucially, it's also where you'll go for your preparation materials. So please do go there to review those questions and access the official GMAT prep. And then hopefully, you can also utilize that site to sign up for the GMAT when you feel ready and confident to do so. One thing I would say is that putting that hours of preparation in will also help you with your application process. So, do wait until you're ready to apply with your full portfolio in place. So don't hurry the GMAT, because that will give you the best chance of possible success. So Bastian, I realized that was a quick run through. So is that okay to move to some questions now?
Yes. Yes, we can take the questions. We already have 2. One you already answered, actually. Is there the hour section in the online test?
Yeah, so there's no AWA in the online test because it works on a very slightly different mechanism to the in-person GMAT exam. However, this could change in the future. So my recommendation is always to check back on the website for the current exam rules and regulations, particularly at this kind of COVID time when things are changing very quickly. It's important to be up to speed on how that's going to work.
Okay, thanks. We've got a question. Clotilde asks, do you pay $250 every time you retake the exam?
Yeah, I'm afraid the fee does stay the same, regardless of whether it's your first or second attempt. We still have the cost of delivering the examination. However, with good preparation, you shouldn't be needing to take the examination more than once and hopefully no more than twice. And we do tend to find that when people have taken the examination maybe a 3rd, 4th, or 5th time, their scores do tend to level out. And that's because GMAT is a highly sophisticated exam that will find your level of ability. So my advice is to really make your preparation strongly in the first place, hopefully hitting the score that you want the first time around. And if not, then the second attempt should do it for you.
Okay, thanks, James. Then we've got another question. How important are IR and AWA scores?
Okay, so this will be very much a question for the different business schools that you're applying to or for Join a School in France. So I'm going to be very honest with you and say that the business schools tend to look primarily at the total score, so the quant and the verbal blended together. However, I do know that certain employers like the skills that are evidenced in the IR. And also some business schools do like to look at the quality of writing in the AWA section. And the final point is that all 4 of these scores will appear on your scorecard. So, if you've got the same score as someone else with a similar profile, would your motivation be questioned if you've not tackled all of those sections in an equal manner? But what I would say is that the quant and the verbal do take more preparation because there's more range in terms of the question types. And also the concepts are maybe a little more abstract than maybe the AWA and the IR. So, for example, if you're doing the IR section, you're looking at a graph or a table, that's probably something you're doing most days anyway. So you should be able to adapt that skill. Similarly, writing an essay is probably something you're doing most days as well. Whereas maybe some of the quantitative concepts maybe need further refreshing. And that's why the preparation should be focused on the quant and the verbal sections.
Okay, thanks. We've got another good question, actually, that we've been speaking here in the team. Currently, most universities are accepting online GMAT scores, but 3 or 4 years down the lane, will they continue accepting them?
Yeah, so at the moment, there's no official kind of stance on whether the online GMAT will continue to exist in a few years' time. However, scores will be valid for 5 years regardless, so business schools should be accepting them within that time frame. I've also not heard any problems with business schools accepting the online GMAT. We partner with our universities very closely. They govern us, they are our members, they guide how we work. So I'm confident that they'll continue to see the value in the GMAT exam online scores even as time goes by.
Okay, thanks. Another question we get a lot, does the test report need to be sent directly to each university, or each applicant needs to submit it by him or herself? So maybe you can start answering, and I might add something.
Yeah, I suppose we're in a very unique situation here, in that obviously Joiner School in France is helping you to apply for multiple business schools at the same time. So there's probably an advantage here. So one thing that I should have said is that if you are applying to one of the Joiner School in France schools, you can make your test score available to them to look at by selecting Joiner School in France from the drop-down menu, either in the testing center or on your GMAT.com account. Most universities and business schools will expect to see your official scorecard. I'm not sure that's always the case. And that can be done, as I say, via your GMAT.com account.
Yeah, exactly. So in addition to selecting in the drop-down bar the Joiner School in France schools, you also have to upload your official score reports on your admission online. So you have to do both. Sending the score to the schools and to Joiner School in France. We're going to check your score. We get an email every time a candidate take the GMAT exam, but we also ask you to upload the official score report. Then Chloe is asking regarding the median number of hours they were in total or per week.
They were in total. So as I say, that was there just to really demonstrate the uplift in score versus time. However, I think one of the key things to think about is making your own personal study plan. So as I mentioned, people's approach to GMAT will be unique and it will be different depending on your background. So my advice would actually be to start out by taking one of the practice examinations free of charge on GMAT.com. That will give you a sense as to your maybe range of ability and a kind of estimation as to your possible total score. You can then build a study plan based around what you've learned about yourself, but then also thinking about what total score you might need for the schools that you're applying to. So really it comes down to making your own personal study plan.
Okay, thanks. Then we've got a question. I don't really know if we're able to answer it, but between GPA and GMAT, which generally has a bigger weightage? This is a school answer.
Yeah, from my experience of working with business schools, and also I used to work for a business school myself, it is genuinely true that they're looking at your overall application portfolio. So clearly, if you're targeting a top program, such as the ones represented by Joiner School in France, they're going to be expecting to see a strong GPA and a strong GMAT. However, there might be cases where having a strong GMAT might help you to make up for maybe a weaker GPA, or vice versa. So my advice would, if you have the opportunities to speak to admissions officers and see how they utilize the GMAT exam, they're normally quite open and quite candid about that. But as I say, when business schools say that they take a holistic approach, that genuinely is true. they're not going to rule you out just because of your GMAT. There'll be other factors in play as well.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, you can compensate. And so even though if it's a lower GPA and you've got like a bigger score at the GMAT, so it's okay. But yeah, you can ask directly the school, and they're quite open to that question. No worries. I can see that someone is typing, so we're gonna wait.
I think that's also a case, Bastien, because of the schools that you work with, they all have such professional teams. They're used to, speaking to international candidates and to guiding them and to counselling them. Ultimately, they want high quality applications to their programs, so that they really are there to help.
Yeah, exactly. And as an example, we had a webinar with HEC like 2 months ago, and they did say that they have a holistic approach. So it's really important to take into account your whole application and provide a strong application just to maximize your chances of being accepted. Thank you so much for the answers. Well, that was. You're welcome. What is the cost of sending scores to business school apart from the 5 that are included with the GMAT tests?
Yep. So as the delegate mentions, when you go to the testing center, you can nominate 5 programs free of charge to access your record. If you then wish to add further schools later, there's a charge of $36 for the admin fee for that. However, for the online GMAT, because you don't get the ability to preview your score immediately, you can send the score to as many schools as you like. So again, there's a slight difference between the mechanism for the in-person and the online GMAT there.
Yeah. In the online GMAT exam, where can I choose the option to send my scores?
So that, Pamela, will be through your online GMAT account. So there should be a section there where you can nominate business schools to be able to access your GMAT record. So I should say that when we say send scores, that's a historic phrasing from when we used to literally post it. Whereas now what we really mean is you're giving them permission to log into our site and to check that you have the score that you say that you have.
Okay, thanks. A lot of people are typing. So Elena says, currently GMAT Online is available until when? February 2021. Are there plans to extend this?
Yeah, so the exam is available until February 2021 at the moment. There's been no official announcement on any extension as yet. However, I'm sure that you can guess from what's going on in the world at this point in time that it doesn't look like things are going to be changing that quickly. So I would estimate that we will be extending the GMAT Online. But also do keep in mind that in many locations, test centres are starting to reopen, although of course they are having to flip back if the governmental regulations require that they do so. So, for example, in the UK, they've been closed for like the last 2 weeks as we've gone back into lockdown. But as lockdown is eased again, then they should start to open up again.
Same in France.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Helena, when it comes to thinking about the process of doing GMAT, you may wish to think about how you feel most comfortable. So some people like the idea of being at home in their own environment and feel quite chilled out doing the exam in that way. Other people might not be able to if they've got kind of, young brothers and sisters or kind of dogs that like to run in and get in the way, whatever it may be. And some people might just might like the more formality of going to that testing center. The idea of going somewhere to do an exam, getting into that exam mindset. So it really depends on you as well.
Okay. So the question, I think the answer is yes, but you're gonna answer that, James. When I select join a school in France, all the 5 schools get the scores, and I still have 4 options left to send to other 4 schools.
Well, I assume, Bastien, that when someone applies, you handle that process for them. So this is probably more about your process, to be honest with you. So when you get an application in, you share that record with all of the schools, yes?
Yeah, but when on the GMAT, when he registers the candidates, so he selects for this candidate, he selects join a school in France. So we get the email, we can check the scores and the 5 schools as well, but he still have the option to send to 4 other schools, no?
Exactly. So yes. So yeah. I thought you meant do they have to send it also to
No.
To EDEC and actually send all those schools. So no, so join a school in France is 1 listing, and then you have 4 more listings that you can select from.
Okay. Yeah, so it's another advantage for you guys. So because you sent in once for 5 schools. Have you got any more questions? If yes, it's the moment to ask them. Otherwise, we're gonna keep going with the Join a School in France admission process. So Quentin is typing. Okay, this might be the last question. And then we're gonna keep on with the process.
Well, as I say, if there are further questions from the candidates who are on the call today, then clearly go to gmat.com for all of the advice that you need. There's information on both the online, of course, and the in-person GMAT exam. As I mentioned, please do keep up to date with the changing regulations and the changing situation. And finally, I'd just like to thank people again for listening to the talk today. As I realised it was quite a lot and quite a quick run through. But if there are no further questions, then I'd like to say thank you again for the invitation. And I wish you all the very best for the GMAT exam and, of course, for your applications.
Well, thanks to you, James. Thanks for accepting the invitation. Thanks for being here. All the information provided, and we talk soon. Okay.
Fantastic. So I shall log out now.
Yeah, you can log out without finishing the events, please.
So I need to click leave and not finish. Yeah.
Finish, exactly.
Great. Thank you again.
Thanks, bye. So. Hi guys, so we're gonna keep going with this webinar, and we are gonna take a look at what it means to apply with us. So what do we do at Join a School in France? We recruit international students for 5 business schools, which are HEC, ESCP, EM Lyon, Schema, and Audencia. So you might know that if you went to our website. I'd just like to bring your attention on one point. We only recruit students for the Masters in Management program. It's not for any MBA, any Masters of Science in Engineering or whatever, okay? It's just the Masters in Management. We get a question a lot, which is there any difference between applying through Join a School in France or applying directly to the schools? And you might ask yourself this question. So there is basically no difference, except that with Join a School in France, you maximize your chances of getting accepted because you apply only once for 5 business schools. So you basically, again, earn time and money. So that's only an advantage for you to apply through Join a School in France. Let's talk now about the students, the profile of the students who can apply to Join a School in France. First, you have to be an international student. So if you are French and you have done your study in France, you cannot apply with us. If you are French and you studied abroad, you can apply with us, okay? So you're eligible as long as you're in your final year of bachelor, or if you already have your bachelor, or even if you have a master's degree, okay? And you can come from whatever background. The Masters in Management program is open to all academic background, business, art, engineering. So do not worry about that. You can apply whatever your major was for the bachelor, okay? Let's talk now about the application process. I'm gonna give you some tips and the steps to follow. So first, how you can apply? How can you apply? You can apply by going on our website. It's very easy. All the admission process is online. You just need to fill up the form on our website, give some basic personal information about you, like your name, your nationality, what you study, your email. It's very important. Please provide us with a good email, because we're gonna email you all the information about the process. So it has to be correct. And obviously you have to provide some documents. So this is the list of the documents, the ID. So ideally, I would recommend a passport or a national ID card. If you guys decide to provide a national ID card, it must be either in English or either in French, okay? Then the diploma or the certificate of attendance, if you have not graduated, the complete transcript of records, the written test scores, as we just saw with James, the English test scores, 2 letters of recommendations, the resume, and the application fee. So you have to pay 200 euro and to upload the invoice. But we're gonna go into details of all these documents now. So first of all, please, guys, remember to take the test early, as we just talked about. I want to insist on that point because it takes time to go through this journey, and taking the test should be the first step of your application, okay? So here are the tests we accept. So if you're here, I guess you're gonna take the GMAT exam, or you might be hesitating, but we do accept these 4 tests: the GMAT, the GRE, the TAJ-MAJ for French speakers, and the CAT for Indians. What's the minimum score for this test? You might wondering. We don't ask for a minimum score for this test because each school has its own requirements. Plus, as we just say, do not forget that schools have a holistic approach through the process of evaluating your application. So these are the tests. Then the English test. So if you're not a native speaker, or if you haven't spent the last 3 years in an English-speaking university, you have to provide us with an English test. So we accept the TOEFL, the TOEIC, the IELTS, and the Cambridge, okay? Then you have to provide us with 2 letters of recommendation. Well, there is not much to say on that, except that the letter should be preferably academic letters. We do accept that one of those letters may be provided by an employer, but the other one has to be an academic letter written by a professor. So one can be from an employer, but the other one for sure has to be academic. And then regarding the proof of payment, well, nothing hard to understand. You have to pay the 200 euro fees and upload the invoice on your application, and there are no fee waivers. Then we're gonna see the questions. So I've got good news for you. We made it easy because you don't have to write any cover letter to submit your application. You only have to answer the question about your motivation. So you can see them on the screen, even though it's a bit little, but there are 4. Describe your proudest accomplishments. Describe a situation where you faced failure, what you learned. How does your application benefit the schools? And the last one, did you take part in any extracurricular activity these past years? Okay, so you just answer that question, and you don't write any cover letter. These questions are very, very, very important because they can boost your chances of being selected for the interview. Also, they will be used by the jury during the interview to ask you questions and get a more complete picture of you as a candidate. So unlike test scores and transcript, these questions give you the possibility to share a story from your life, to reveal something about your character or your value. So please answer them carefully, write a draft, and don't wait until the last minute to write something. So then, once you're done with your application, you will receive the result of your admissibility for the interview 2 or 3 weeks later. Okay, you will receive an email by Join a School in France. Then the interview. So you may have to attend an interview if you're pre-selected by at least one school. Okay, you just need to be pre-selected by one school to be invited to the interview. I insist on this point. It's only one interview, even though you have been selected by the whole school or 3 schools or 4 schools. The interview takes place in the city you chose in the form when you applied. It's a face-to-face interview, except, well, during these turbulent times, obviously. Regarding the situation in your country, we might propose you an online interview through Skype. But in this case, we will email you and we will let you know. The interview lasts about 30 minutes. It's conducted in English, and the jury is made up of 2 or 3 alumni. Okay. Then, what kind of questions are being asked during the interview? Well, the interview is really similar to a typical job interview. So question may depend on your profile. Alumni will try to get to know you better, talk about your experience on your CV, about what you said on your question we just talked about. So we just want to get a sense of you as a whole person. We want to know more than just how well you work. We can know that because of test scores, and we want to see how you actually think. We will assess your analytical capacities during the interview. So this is just the time and place to show who you really are and what you care about. One important thing is that we are keen on recruiting students who are well informed. That's why general knowledge is important, and question may concern recent business or economic news, okay? Also, one last thing you have to know about the interview is that we also assess your what we call the soft skills. So it might ring the bells for some of you. So the soft skills are, for instance, your communication ability or the way you present. So please come dressed properly, like a job interview, for instance, and speak well, speak properly. You're going to be evaluate and assess on that as well. I think I'm done with the interview. So after the interview, again, you will the final decision about your admission is communicated by email 2 weeks after the end of the interview period in the world. Okay, so it's usually a 2 weeks interview period in the world, and the final decision is given 15 days after. So this is like a quick summary of the admission process. I won't spend that much time on it because, well, it's just a summary, but it's just to make it clear for you. Just remember that it requires times and good work in terms of preparing your resume, taking your test, answering the question. So please do everything early and don't wait the last minute to submit your application. Also, we get that question quite a lot, like, is it better to submit your application sooner than the deadline? Well, I'd say yes, because I can, and the whole team can check your application way before the deadline. So if there's any problem, we can just get in touch with you and let you know, well, maybe you should change that, or there's a problem with that. Okay, so the sooner, the better. Let's talk about the admission calendar. So this is the admission calendar. 4 recruitment sessions are organized by our team. Round 1 is almost over now. You are not able to apply anymore. The interview period for round 1 is over, and we will publish the final admission results soon at the end of November. But applications for other rounds are obviously still open. You can see the key dates and deadline for round 2. You have to take them into consideration. So you can apply for round 2 till January 7th. Okay? So let's see what else can I say. Yeah, you can apply just once per year. So you can apply in one round only. You cannot apply twice or to each rounds. And that's it for the admission process part. I'll be happy to take some questions in the chat box. I've seen that you wrote some of them. So do not forget to go on our website just to see the rules, the frequently asked question, or the other webinars. Follow us on the social media, and here is the team. So now, the questions. So we've got, at the time of the interview, will I know which university rejected, accepted me? Yes, obviously, Pamela. So you submit your application, then the schools review your application, and you will get the result of which school pre-selected you. So yes, you will know before the interview which school accepted you. Chloe, for the English-speaking university, should we ask our university for a proof of language proficiency later, or our official transcript are sufficient? So if you studied in an English-speaking university, the official transcript is enough. Also because most of the time it's written that you studied in English, that the medium of instruction is English. So if you got the official transcript is enough. You can always ask for like a proof of language, well, not a proof, but just like a letter saying that you have done your whole study in English. But if you don't want to, the official transcript is enough. One important thing, the whole degree has to be done in English, like not just a part. So if one part has been done in a language and the other part in English, it won't be okay for the official transcript, okay? It has to be all in English. For instance, I don't know if you studied at McGill in Canada, it's okay, you can just upload that. Ralph, what's the difference between applying to round 2 and round 3? I don't know what to answer that question. There is no difference. I would say that if you're ready to apply for round 2, do it. It's for round 2, it's better. But like there is no big difference, except that maybe like many people wait for round 3 to apply. So it's like you will be with a lot of other people to apply. So maybe I would recommend you to apply to round 2 if you can. Elena, just to clarify, as I've been receiving different information from different schools webinar, when I did my bachelor degree 100% English, but my country is a non-English speaking country, am I still excluded from the English tests? Yes, only if it's like if it's written that the medium of instruction was in English, okay? I will double check, just because telling you the answer I've kind of doubting, but I'm quite sure it's okay if your whole degree was in English. But please, Elena, just to double check, email us at the address you can see on the screen, please, and I will double check with the school to be sure. But I'm almost sure it will be okay, and you will be exempt from the English test. But we don't have that much case like your case. That's why I'm hesitating. Is there an age limit for applying to a master's in management program of the 5 school? Well, we don't have any age limits. I know that some schools do have some. Sometimes, like I'm not even speaking the school from Join the School in France. So some of them do give this information on their website. We don't have any age limit, so no problem for that. After getting the admission results, how much time do we get to accept? Oops, sorry, it moved. After getting the admission results, how much time do we get to accept the offer? This I cannot tell you because it depends on each school. And once you're accepted in the schools, in 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 schools, depends. You will be talking with the schools only, not with join a school in France anymore. Okay, so I cannot tell you the answer for that, Satmia, because it's not join a school in France anymore. The school will let you know, I guess, a deadline when telling you, well, you have been accepted. You've got till this date to give your answer. Does applying to later on lower our acceptance since students already applied in previous rounds? Well, Danny, it's kind of the same question one of your colleagues just asked. No, no, it's not. It's not a problem, but obviously, I don't know why students tend to wait the last minute to apply. So no, it's exactly the same. You can apply to round 4, and it's going to be okay. That's why we organize 4 different rounds for people who need more time to take the test or whatever. But the sooner, the better. Again, within how many days of online registration we have to pay the 200 euros. So you can pay them till the deadline. So for instance, for round 2, you've got till January 7 to pay the 200 euros. But again, I recommend to do it early. So the sooner the better. But after, if the 7th of January you haven't paid the 200 euros, well, you cannot apply, and you will be transferred to round 3. And same for round 3. Is the 3rd of March you didn't pay, well, you will be transferred to round 4. Okay, I hope this is clear. Do we need the GRE result to submit the application, or can we send them later? No, Estella, we need the GRE, the GMAT, the TAJMA, or whatever, the written test scores. We need them to accept your application. Otherwise, your application is incomplete, and we cannot accept it. So there's no way to send them later. And we need the official scores as well. Whatever it is, the GRE, the GMAT, the CAT, or the TAJMAJ. What is the average of students that apply per round? Pamela, depends on the rounds. Each round is different, so I cannot give you any number for this question. Okay, guys. So it's been 1 hour already. So if you have a last question, this is the moment to ask it. Otherwise, we're gonna finish this webinar. Thanks to you guys. Well, thank you very much for coming to this webinar. I hope it was useful for you. I hope you got all the information you wanted, and I hope to see your application for round 2. And do not hesitate to email us, and we will be happy to answer and to reply. Bye, guys, and take care.